Writing is a form of communication that is important through every walk of life, both in and outside of the school setting. It is important that children are exposed to authentic learning experiences that allow them to communicate through different forms of written text. This presentation will be broken down into 3 themes. It will firstly explain current research around the principles underpinning the acquisition of writing skills. It will then take a look into classroom assessment and describe how a teacher's assessment and evaluation influences further teaching. At the conclusion of this presentation, it will discuss how to apply these findings to the classroom setting and outline examples to creatively teach children to write. In order to be a quality, effective teacher, one must have essential characteristics. In other words, effective pedagogical practices produce effective teachers. These pedagogical practices must be embedded into one's knowledge, planning, implementation, and evaluation for positive results. Furthermore, teachers must also be willing to reflect upon these practices, thus ensuring growth and development as new research, ideas, and findings emerge. Effective teaching can be shown through many characteristics, the main outcome being child development. Tompkins, Campbell, and Green outline 8 principles of what it takes to become an effective literacy teacher in the classroom. The first principle is that effective teachers understand how children learn. By doing this, teachers can recognize and support the differences each child brings to a classroom and can determine how to cater to the diverse abilities of all learners. In particular, there are 4 areas of knowledge about students that teachers need to acquire. Knowledge of academic capabilities, knowledge of social and emotional needs, knowledge of physical attributes, and knowledge of students' spiritual beliefs. Depending on the needs of the learners will determine whether a teacher would take a student-centered or a teacher-centered approach to instruction. The second principle is that effective teachers support student use of the cueing system. This includes the phonological, syntactic, semantic, pragmatic, and paralinguistic systems of the English language. The phonological system is important when teaching young students to write, as they apply phonic skills to decode and spell words. The third principle is effective teachers create a community of learners. By simply providing a safe learning environment where students are embracing differences and feel like they belong, is creating a community of learners. The fourth principle is effective teachers adopt a balanced approach to instruction. This combines explicit instruction, guided practice, collaborative learning, and independent reading and writing. It combines the best of student-centered and teacher-centered learning theories. A balanced approach to writing instruction is shown through integration of other literacy programs. The fifth principle is effective teachers scaffold student reading, writing, viewing, speaking, and listening. Teachers scaffold students in the acquisition of writing by modeling, sharing, interacting, guiding, and conferencing with students during independent tasks. The sixth principle is that effective teachers organize for language, literature, and literacy instruction. In the acquisition of writing skills, teachers need to create learning activities that are suitable for their students, while at the same time meeting the requirements of the Australian curriculum. The seventh principle is that effective teachers link instruction and assessment. The importance of assessing student development in all areas of education cannot be expressed enough. Teachers need to formally and informally assess writing tasks, as it identifies strengths and weaknesses, and it influences further teaching. And the eighth principle is that effective teachers become partners with parents. Teachers must constantly communicate with parents and encourage them to assist children with home literacy activities. There are 3 developmental stages in which children move through to becoming successful writers: the emergent stage, beginning stage, and the fluent stage. Within the emergent stage, children start to develop basic handwriting skills and begin to learn writing words and sentences from left to right on a line and top to bottom on a page. The beginning stage is apparent when children can write from left to right, show proper use of capital and lowercase letters, and are able to write many words and sentences phonetically. And the fluent stage of writing is shown when children can write well-developed compositions and are able to use the writing process to draft and refine their writing. Fluent writers must know how to make meaning clear through written formats rather than face-to-face or immediate context. Furthermore, writers construct meaningful messages for others to read. In order for children to move through the developmental stages of writing, teachers must explicitly teach a series of 5 writing processes. The writing process is not a step-by-step set of linear rules. Rather, it is flexible and allows writers to move back and forth through stages, therefore making it fluid and dynamic. The 5 phases of the writing process are pre-writing, drafting, revising, editing, and publishing. The pre-writing stage represents the planning process where the topic and purpose is explored. Strategies such as brainstorming and fast writing activities are appropriate in this stage. The drafting stage is where the rough draft is produced, where ideas from the pre-writing stage start to develop. The revising stage is the polishing phase, where writers refine their compositions. Usually teacher feedback is needed in this stage to determine whether improvements can be made. The editing stage is much like the revising stage, where the proofreading continues and improvements and alterations are made. The publishing stage is where the final copy is produced. Teachers can successfully implement the writing process in the classroom through effective teaching practices such as modelling, sharing, guiding, and applying. Moving on to the second theme of this presentation, which is to discuss how a teacher's assessment and evaluation of children's writing influences further teaching. Assessment for learning can be described as the process of formal and informal activities undertaken by a teacher to gather information about learners' knowledge, skills, and attitudes on chosen topics. Assessment outcomes can be the determining factor for a teacher in deciding how to deliver curriculum content through suitable learning activities. Furthermore, classroom assessment can be broken down into 3 categories: diagnostic, formative, and summative assessment. Diagnostic assessment is the stage at which a child's prior knowledge, strengths, and weaknesses are discovered through a range of tests undertaken by the teacher. Formative assessment is a range of formal and informal assessment procedures usually carried out during instruction that allows teachers to determine whether students are understanding the content that is being taught. And lastly, summative assessment is the final summary of a student's development. It is usually done at the conclusion of a unit through assessment practices such as assignments or classroom exams. In the course of teaching students how to write, it is important for teachers to monitor progress through a number of diagnostic, formative, and summative assessment practices. Observations, anecdotal notes, checklists, rating scales, and conferences are effective strategies to see where students are at with their writing skills. Teachers must collect writing compositions and create student portfolios as it provides evidence of progress. Rubrics or scoring guides are also important tools for assessment as it outlines specific expectations and goals that link to learning objectives. It is crucial for teachers to continually assess student development in writing as it displays where they are in their learning, where they need to go, and how best to get there. Without assessment practices in the classroom, teachers may as well be employed as babysitters. In conclusion, this presentation will put the last 2 themes into action and describe how I will creatively teach children how to write. I will maximize student interest in writing by creating a positive learning environment where all the needs of students are catered to. I will implement a balanced literacy approach where explicit instruction, guided practice, collaborative learning, and independent writing activities are promoted through authentic learning activities. An authentic learning environment can be demonstrated by relating classroom lessons with real-world situations. In order to do this, some examples of classroom practices could include writing workshops, writing centres, literacy centres, word wars, small group projects, whole class discussions, and brainstorming activities. A classroom example on learning to write could include a lesson on learning to write persuasive essays. The topic of writing could be, tuck shops should not sell lollies. This would be an appropriate topic as it will require students to research healthier lunch options, therefore providing an authentic learning experience. An introduction to the lesson could include the use of KWL charts, where students brainstorm their ideas into a chart describing what they know, what they want to know, and as they learn something new, they fill in the L section, which represents learning of new things. The teacher could then describe what a persuasive essay is and model how to write one using the 5 stages of the writing process. The teacher could then instruct the class to begin writing their drafts on the chosen topic. Of course, all children will be at different levels when it comes to writing, and some students may show signs of struggle. In cases of struggling writers, differentiating instruction will be most beneficial. Through formative assessment practices such as questioning students, a teacher would be able to determine whether students are on the right track. The summative assessment phase of this classroom lesson would be the published persuasive essays of all students.